All right, we're rolling. Chris Longhorn here with my lovely wife, Alex.
Hi.
Today, my video is not so funny. It might have funny parts, but this is about diet. I had 4 people ask me, Longhorn, what are you eating? Picture got out about me eating peas, and then that's happening. So I decided, hey, why not throw a quick 5-minute video on the members-only site so y'all know what I'm eating and my take on both paleo and the Whole30 diet that I know lots of you are doing right now. So this is kind of a support for everybody to just say, hey, yeah, this is how I've integrated it and we've integrated it into our lives.
Yep.
You know? So here it goes. What does Longhorn think about diet? Let me tell you. Thank you for asking, because I have so much to say. Sit back.
You always have a lot to say.
Alex, don't. This is my video, okay?
Mm-hmm.
You know, Alex is drinking green juice right now, which is probably 10 carrots, bunch of spinach, celery. What else in there?
That's it.
A lot of good veggies in our juicer. If you're interested in juicing and how to make veggie juices, you can just member site, say, hey, Longhorn, how you do the juice? And I'll make a whole video on my juicer too, because I can talk about that a lot as well. Anyway, my take on diet. Okay, for me, oh, and before I start, I used to be fat. So here's a picture of me fat. Insert fat picture of me here. And then I lost a lot of weight, massive journey, tons of fun, but anyway, not what I'm, anyway, okay, edit that. All right. So, diet starts out with, I don't know if anybody has heard of the zone diet, but basically the zone diet says you need to portion your foods into a fat, a carbohydrate, and a protein. And they need to be in relative equal portion to each other. So, basically, what I do with my food is I start out by saying, every meal, have I represented a carbohydrate, a protein, and a fat? And I look at the plate and I go, all right, are they all here? And the reason they need to be there is because that mostly affects all the hormones in your body and your mood and your sugar stability, like your glucose. You know, you don't want it to spike up if you have too much carbohydrates. If you eat just too much protein, you get skittish and you can't take a poop. Or if you eat too much fat, you get fat, which sucks, and you don't want to be fat. So, well, you might, but I didn't. So I stopped eating just too much fat. You know? What do you think, Alex?
Well, I actually think that it was a good thing you weren't fat when we met. That's what I was thinking.
Okay. So Alex is glad she's saying I wouldn't have landed her if I was fat. Which is true. You know, I mean, I wouldn't deserve a hottie boom body like Alex if I was fat.
But I stuck with you through the fat years. I didn't, you know,
anyway,
I'm not that shallow.
That's enough out of you, okay? Drink your juice, okay? Back to me, what I think on diet. So, now you've got the ratio of fat, carbohydrates, and protein. And what you want to do then is say, okay, if you're doing nothing else, and you end up in like the McDonald's drive-thru, or let's say you go out to breakfast, okay? You've just had a wild night with the girls, and you're like, ooh, ladies, or like wild night with the bros, and you're like, oh, I drank hard, whatever, and you end up, you're at a diner, it's the morning after, you know, you might be regretting some stuff you did, whatever it is. You're there in the diner and you're going like, I could crush some pancakes. Okay, fine, you have your pancakes, but don't have your pancakes on their own. You might think to yourself, well, I want to look really good for Memorial Day Murph. I better not also have bacon and eggs. Now, that would probably be about the worst meal I could think to put together. However, it would have the ratio of carbohydrates from those awful pancakes with syrup on it. A little bit of butter on there is going to be better than no butter, because yes, that's right, the fat. Thanks for asking about that, Alex. Butter's the fat, and then you got those eggs are the protein, and then bacon is just more fat, okay? Hate to say it, it's not a lot of protein in bacon. It hits the scene huge these days of like, oh, I'm going to eat protein.
Fat.
It's fat, lots of it. Very high in fat, not so high in protein. It's a whole food though, but we'll get to that.
Sort of.
Okay, so now you've established that in every single meal you eat, even if you're having a snack, you'll notice the best little snack bars, not that I endorse them, but have a ratio of fat, protein, carbohydrates in them. Any that are just like a cereal grain with honey and whatever else, no good. You need to have nuts in there and you need a little bit of protein in there. All right, are you understanding this?
Yes.
Good. hoping you are too. Okay, so we've got our ratio. Now you go, okay, I've got 3 categories, fat, protein, carbohydrates. What's the quality of those 3 categories? So let's start with carbohydrates. Worst carbohydrate is probably beer, maltose. It hits the blood sugar and it's just terrible, and it's like liquid bread, basically. And it's not very good for you, but it's carbohydrate. All the way through, you've got bread, and then you've got whole grain bread, and then you've got brown whole grain bread, and then you've got Ezekiel bread, which is, they're all breads and they're all a carbohydrate. And then you get into going, all right, well, vegetables are actually a carbohydrate. Now, yes, is there some protein in them? Yes, there is some, but not enough to hit the category. Vegetables are a carbohydrate. Now, the perfect carbohydrate is going to be something that's a vegetable carbohydrate. It's going to be something like a sweet potato or a pea. That's where the peas come from, right? Every morning, Longhorn has peas with his eggs. I like them. I get them there in Costco. Luckily, they weren't infected with SARS or whatever's going around right now in the peas. And so that's a higher quality carbohydrate. What makes it higher quality? Well, thanks for asking. Actually, what makes it a higher quality carbohydrate is that it's a whole food. It means it grew that way. It was planted, it grew, they picked it, they froze it, and I'm eating it. Okay? So if there was bread made out of peas, that would be not as good because it would be a little bit processed. It would be pea bread, which somebody would go, oh, I took the protein out of peas. It's not a whole food. Whole foods are the basis around the paleo diet. They're like, oh, eat like the cavemen did. You know,
And Whole30.
And Whole30 that everybody's doing now, which is also great. Whole30, whole foods, not just a whole 30 days. So your job is to not take the carbohydrates and break them down into as many yummy things as you can. Is to go, I'm going to eat them as whole foods. So now you've got that from a bad carbohydrate to a good one. What do you want to move on to next, Alex?
I was just going to say I eat sweet potatoes for breakfast because I don't like peas.
Okay. You could have sweet potatoes for breakfast, like Alex here does. She puts a little. You know what? What's your breakfast?
Half a sweet potato, big pile of spinach and/or broccoli or something like that, green, and 2 eggs.
2 eggs.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what Alex eats for breakfast. All right.
Thanks. And this juice, but.
And that juice. Yeah, but that's something else. Okay. Anyway, what do you want to hit next as a category? Fat or protein?
Either.
Let's do fat next, okay? Bad fat is probably bacon. That's not a very good one. It's got a lot of stuff that's not great for your heart, and we all know that, and yada, yada, yada. It's very good. No. Even worse is pork roll, okay? Pork roll, some people even call that a protein, but it's not a protein. It's just frickin' fat. It's like mechanically separated fat
I
from
don't know what it is.
a pig's jowls and stuff. It's like a hot dog. It's fatty. Very, very high in fat. That's a really bad fat. Then you go through, you go, what's a plant-based whole food fat? Can you think of one?
Avocados.
Avocados. Thanks for that, Alex.
You're welcome.
That was nice.
You're
I
welcome.
like when you say avocado.
Elliot just started eating avocados. Very proud.
All right, that's enough.
Okay.
It's my video, okay?
Back to my juice.
Yeah, drink your juice. So, avocados. Raw almonds. What? Did you say raw, Chris? That was you talking. Say that.
Raw?
No, you say, what did you say, raw, Chris?
Did you say raw? Chris?
Thanks for asking, Alex. Yes, I did say raw. An interesting point. The reason that raw foods, like an avocado is raw, is good for you, a almond raw, or those vegetables are raw, is because plants have in them the enzyme that it takes to digest themselves. Okay, now I'm going to go on a little tangent here about raw food. Okay, it is pretty important to have raw foods also at as many meals as you can. And the reason is, like I just said, they have an enzyme in them that digests themselves. So if you sit an apple on the table, it'll rot. Really, it's digesting itself. When you eat an apple, your digestive system triggers that apple to digest itself. So you just gain energy from it. When you have a meal that's cooked, it kills those living enzymes that are in the foods that you're eating, and your body actually treats it as if it were a foreign invader. And white blood cells from your immune system go and they attack that food. And they work on that food and they go, this has got to be something foreign because it's definitely not registering as a food because it has no enzymes. So you get tired after you eat. So if you have been tired after you eat, if you've had that afternoon slump, oh, I just had a burrito, why am I so tired? Some people go, oh, it's because it's carbohydrates. Okay, well, sugar does dope you out a little bit, but mostly it's because your immune system is hard at work trying to fight off a battle in your stomach that it shouldn't be fighting, because that's just your food. Eat some raw food or raw juice. I'm going to set that straight. What was I on? Fat?
Yes.
So now you've got that live almond, that live avocado that's full of all of those enzymes that will help digest that fat. And because it's plant-based, you can't beat it. I mean, there's just not many articles about, I've never read anything bad about avocados. And, Alex is 75 years old and she has no gray hair.
50.
50 years old.
I still have no gray hair.
Right. I am 22 years old. And I also have no gray hair. But that's not as impressive. It's more impressive that Alex doesn't. You look great.
You have no hair. Oh, sorry.
This is my video. Don't talk so much, okay? All right. So now we've done fat. So you're like, all right, I'm going to take the most raw, the most plant-based, the most whole food fat I can have, and I'm going to pop it on that plate in that ratio. We'll get to the ratio exactly later. Anyway, next comes, what's next? Protein.
Protein.
Here's where some of us
Tricky.
are going to part ways, okay? It's been long said, in the weightlifting community, in paleo, like kill the meat, crush the meat, the more meat, the more protein, the more muscle. And it's been researched by a guy called Colin Campbell. He wrote a book called The China Study. I highly recommend it, but unfortunately it says, hey, if you eat too much meat, you're going to grow all of your cells. And that includes your muscle cells. Well, that's great. That's going to include your hair cells. Well, that's fabulous, especially for me. Maybe it's why I don't have any hair. But it also grows all sorts of cells that we don't want, one of them being cancer cells. So you want to limit that meat down. His research showed 10 to 15% of your meal. So in my diet, and I'm not saying what you should do, just suggesting, just saying what Longhorn does, 10 to 15%. Not very much. Just a yummy taste. You have anything to say about that?
Yes. The centerpiece of your food is the vegetables. The proteins and fats are like the special treats that add all the flavor.
I eat a lot of that fat that she's talking about, though. That's more like
not none, but.
So now the ratio. Okay, third thing that we throw on our diet, that I throw on my diet because I used to be a fatty and I don't want to be anymore, is the amount of calories. It's not carte blanche to say, oh, well, I'm eating avocados, I'm going to eat 6 because they're about 240 calories each for a medium-sized one.
Yeah.
So you eat 6 of those and you're eating not a lot of calories, too many. And you're going to throw that ratio out. To ratio out the carbohydrates that you would need and the protein that you would need to go with that meal would be, my hand's up high, you can't see it, like that, too high. So you need to go, all right, I'm burning 2,000 calories a day, 2,600 calories a day, whatever it is I'm doing, and I need to cap those meals so that I personally eat 4 times a day. 4 by 4 is my rule. 400 calorie meal, 4 times a day. That's, how many calories?
Not enough calories for you.
That's not what I'm doing. 5 meals a day.
Probably at 500 calories a day.
5 by 5 is my rule. Okay, I probably don't have a rule because I couldn't figure out what it was. I wanted one for this video and it just fell apart. I'm editing that out.
Okay.
It's not going in there. My rule is 5 by 5. I eat 5 times a day, 500 calories. How much is that?
2,500.
2,500 calories a day is what I take in. All right? So that works for me. Exercise a lot. Not as much as Alex. Nobody's as good as her, but, I try.
You do your best.
Yeah. And so it comes in around that number. So that's a lot of rules and a lot of work. But let's back up. Where do you start? You start out with going, have I ratioed fat, protein, and carbohydrates? Because that's going to level your brain, it's going to level your muscles, and it's going to give you the most bang for your buck out of that meal. You're going to feel the most energy from that over the most amount of time by that ratio. So that's important. Every snack, every meal, you ratio it out no matter what it is. Then you go, how high in quality can I represent those three categories of fat, protein, and carbohydrate? And after that, go, at the end of the day, let's just tally it on up and find out where we're coming in on calories so we can control our weight. One thing I will say, though, is if you're moving over from a crappy diet of refined foods and all that other kind of stuff, you'll lose weight just by going on a higher quality diet. So don't be, what you don't want to do is go, oh, and I'm also going to lose a lot of weight by having 1,400 calories a day or 1,000 calories a day and being under, caloried, because that you'll see the performance go. And I think a lot of the times that's what happens, And then you want to add, you're not very talkative. Alex usually won't stop talking. And now I can't get her to talk. She's shy on the video. She's like, everybody at the gym's going to laugh at her, but I told her
I don't think that's not true.
Go ahead. What do you want to say?
I was just going to say, if you're working out a lot, you can't undereat.
Right. I already said that, so that's why she don't want to say it.
Eating regularly, before you get hungry.
And if you go out and you have a crap night, you drink a lot of beer and you're feeling bad about it, just get back on the horse, have your zone meal, your paleo meal, your Whole30 meal, whatever that is. But one thing you can do when you're out and you're having those beers is remember, you can have a beer with that protein and carbohydrate at the same time, and it's also going to sustain out that nice drunk feeling that we all know. You know what I mean? So you can drink less beer and be more happy for more time.
I think we've gone off a little bit of health there.
Okay.
Time to stop. Maybe.
So, any closing thoughts, Alex? Anything you are like, what pisses me off?
You told me not to talk on the video much, so no.
You don't want to say
thoughts.
anything?
I said, no. I'm good.
All right. Well, if you have questions, you can feel free to ask me because I'm approachable. I know Alex, she throws it around. She's been known to throw weights around and grunt and be very unapproachable and a little intimidating. But I myself, obviously, I'm not the performer that Alex is at the gym, so I'm a little more approachable. So if you have any questions, I would love to just sit you down and talk at you forever about what I know. And
you did well.
Yeah.
It was a good job.
So until next time, I'm Chris Longhorn. And I'm Alex Freer in the gym. And we'll see you next time.